The characters aren't inspired by people I've met, but I think we all writers inhabit their books, and their books inhabit the writer. So I'm sure many of the people are composites of people that I know, or and in some ways I'm writing about my own life. I'm sure that's true, through the prism of a country that's very, very far away from me. But I think something that really stood to me as a writer was going back to those apartments that I was very curious as a 12-year-old. And a lot of the writing that started to work happened when I really wrote about just one very tiny, specific living space, and then began to open it out. So it became a door into a greater world by just writing about someone's small domestic situation. So I studied sociology in college, and I think that actually weirdly, or in retrospect, was a help. Something I'm interested in is the effect of the institution on the individual, and the individual on the institution, how those things combine. I'm from Ireland, and the institution that dominated our lives for almost a century was the Catholic Church, and how people kind of carry the atmosphere that institution brings, how they carry it through their lives. And when you read Russian history, especially around that time, if we think of Soviet Russia or the Soviet Union, we think of the Stalinist eras in the 50s, how fear was incredibly palpable and paranoia was very palpable in those times. And that doesn't dissipate very quickly. That's most of the people I'm writing about, probably their parents would have lived during the Stalinist era. So that weight gets passed on from generation to generation. But it weakened a little by the 1980s, and you could feel that a political system that was powered by fear, once they had broken that image that they were no longer all powerful, then the kind of floodgates opened. So Chernobyl was definitely part of that time where people realized actually the government and the governing forces were quite weak, and you could see it, kind of a new energy coming out onto the streets after that. There's a character in it called Yevgeny, who's a piano prodigy. I'm not sure where he came out of. I started writing about a train station, a metro station in Moscow, which had these beautiful mosaics on the roof. And as far as I remember, there was a kid looking up at them. And then I started concentrating on the sound of the scene, and then he very quickly developed a really heightened kind of awareness of sound. And I think that's where he came from, and then I began to follow it from there.